I know right now a lot of you are worried, trying to figure out, will the coronavirus infect your retirement? If you turn on the news, the radio, anything else, you're hearing all of this doom, this gloom, everything that's coming on with the headlines. Maybe you're just worried about those headlines that you've been seeing, the drops you've been hearing about in the market, and whether or not you're actually retired or are you going to be staying retired. Regardless of your situation, worries are worries, and those worries are real. So our goal is to be able to help each one of you guys put those to rest. And before we get started, I want to make sure that we share some this is going to be generalized information. And if you want to know for your specific situation, what are things that you can do to help out or that you should do to improve, I want to make sure that you know that at the end of this time, it's available to you to set a time with us, with a financial advisor, to help guide you through those questions. Don't act on what you're going to hear today. Make sure that you're speaking to a licensed professional that can help you out with your individual questions. So with that, we're here because every one of us has been watching those headlines unfold. Every major media outlet, from CNN to Fox News to the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the BBC, obviously the People's Daily in Beijing, virtually every publication around the world's lead story is the rapid spread of the coronavirus. The latest death toll we see just keeps climbing. And as we look at that, we see that happening and we're confused, right? A lot of people we see in China, there's just multiple cases upon cases, and we hope that that has slowed down. But what is actually going to be the final toll with this? In Europe, the biggest outbreak so far is Italy. The European nations are racing. They're trying to control the contagion right now. So if we look at that and we say, how many cases right now are we talking about? What's going on in the world? We see that we could look at Johns Hopkins map that's available online. And right now, as I record this, on March the 26th, here about noon, it's 510,000 cases worldwide. Total deaths, almost 23,000 right now. Luckily, there's over almost 121,000 that have recovered from this fully. Those countries that we're seeing hit, to put it in perspective, 2009, the H1N1 virus, which started out of Mexico, ended up in more than 200 countries. It resulted in over 60.8 million cases, 274,000 hospitalizations, 12,469 deaths. That was in the U.S. alone. So that's huge with that. So the World Health Organization officials and U.S. experts, they report it's too early to declare what this is fully going to be, but it has been deemed a pandemic. It's a worldwide spread of a new disease, but we've got to be prepared for what this can do. They report that most of those affected will have next to no symptoms initially, making it hard to isolate patients. That's why we've seen so many places go onto a lockdown. In fact, as we record this, we're getting ready in Orange County here in Florida to go onto a mandatory lockdown for non-essential activities starting tonight. Luckily for us, we're able to continue business as usual to help you out with your questions. When there's no symptoms, it makes it so hard to isolate those patients. That's why we've seen this continue, that when people visit, they say, I've got no symptoms, I've got no problems. So at this point in time, those people know that they're doing all that they can to help people from panicking. But we know when the media is spinning things, it's often a very different creature. The media knows how to fan the flames, right? They tend to do that, and then you have the reactions. The reactions normally showcase in the market. So what have we been seeing? We've been seeing stuff like the Dow extends its two-day sell-off to 1,911 points after CDC tells Americans to brace for possible outbreak. Of course, you're going to react to that. Every continent except Antarctica has reported coronavirus cases. I think that's still the case with that as we do this. Sweeping closures in Italian towns as coronavirus cases rise. We're seeing that here in America as well, as more and more states and municipalities go on to lockdown. CDC urges at-risk Americans to take action by stocking up on food and medicine for coronavirus. Unfortunately, you've had some people that have stocked up on too much food with that. Israel says anyone entering the country must self-quarantine for 14 days. We, as the U.S., have done that same thing for people traveling from certain regions of the globe, or even just here in the States. If you're coming from New York, for instance, that you're being put on that lockdown with that. So as we continue to see this, a lot of you guys are sitting there like this, just staring at the computer. Over the last 2-3 weeks, you've just been staring at the computer, looking at your accounts or at the news headlines, watching what's been happening. On Monday, March 9th, the Dow fell more than 2,000 points. The S&P, we've seen multiple times that it's tripped circuit breakers. The circuit breakers are in place to try to pause trading for a little bit, 15 minutes. Just let people collect their breaths, kind of shake loose, don't go into a panic, and start to see what's happening. To give you an idea, those falls that we've seen, December 1st, 2008, if anybody can remember back to what we thought was a crisis at the moment, stocks fell just over 9% in a day. So we see that it just continues happening. Those headlines that pop up, the circuit breaker reports, everything that's going on. So what does it really mean? Well, if we look back to Monday, March 9th, to put it into context, you woke up, you heard about the S&P 500, the 500 big companies, in the U.S. It's nothing more than an index. It's just kind of like if you were to look at your thermometer, it's giving you a temperature check. That's what this is doing. It's giving a temperature check of what's going on. Let's say each of you listening to this right now woke up Monday, March 9th. You had $500,000 invested in the S&P 500. Now, what if you needed to access your money that evening after the market had closed? How much money would you have left? Well, when the market closed and you got to the end of the day, your 500,000 had magically transformed itself into 462,000. It was down 7.6%. In other words, $38,000 disappeared. $38,000 disappeared from your account. Now, as a financial advisor, I'm almost obligated to say something here like, yeah, but it's the market, everybody. There are bound to be ups and downs, and we all just have to weather the storms every now and then. Folks, I actually have a hard time saying that to many of our clients with a straight face, because many of our new clients that walked into our office look a lot like this guy. For the purposes of being anonymous, we'll just call him Tom. Tom's an awful lot like a lot of you guys. He's worked all his life, over 40 years, to get to this stage. And this wonderful stage in which the finish line is finally within sight, retirement and all his many dreams deferred are just another 50 or 60 yards away. I have a really hard time telling Tom, hey, Tom, never mind the $38,000 of your hard-earned savings, money that likely took you years to accumulate. Never mind it disappearing in a matter of hours. Just weather the storm, bud. Frankly, folks, there's a lot of things that Tom and the rest of you have likely heard that you'll never hear from us. For instance, how many of you have heard an advisor talk about something called the 4% rule? Anybody ever heard of this? 4% rule is pretty simple, but it's pretty archaic rule of thumb that has to do with how much of your retirement savings you can safely take out or live off of each year without presumably running out of money. For decades, advisors have been using this rule with their clients. Unfortunately, there's now all sorts of research showing that depending upon the market performance and your actual lifespan and situation, you may not be able to pull anywhere close to 4% of your retirement savings out each year without running out of money. In other words, following this supposed rule is a little like betting the farm on Farmer's Almanac. If you've ever seen one of those, and it kind of tells you when you should plant things and do things. If you want to fully believe that, if you can, you can do it if you want to. I certainly wouldn't encourage it. But let's just say hypothetically you did. Let's say you've been following this advice and you've got your $500,000 again invested in the market. At 4% per year, that means that you'd be withdrawing $20,000 annually in income. Folks, if that had been the case, which it is for many of the clients we see coming into our office, that means that on March 9th, you'd have lost nearly 2 years worth of hard-earned retirement income in just 9 hours. You see why we have a hard time with some of the advice that you get from others when it comes to weathering storms and 4% rules and everything somehow just turning out okay? okay is not good enough is how that commercial goes, right? We believe the same thing. If you're going to lose 2 years of income in 9 hours, what's the plan? How do you recover? It's why we don't design our plans that way. So what we do at the Life Wealth Group, we could literally be losing money while we're sitting here, and we're supposed to be doing. What are we supposed to be doing? The answer to that question, unlike someone who tells everybody the cookie cutter solution, is to simply ride things out or run in the other direction, liquidate all your investments and run to cash. The real answer to that question is, it depends. Every single one of you that are listening to this has unique circumstances. No one of you are invested exactly the same. None of you have the exact same goals and visions of what retirement should look like. A few of you inherently are a little bit more of a risk taker by nature, and in that your pursuit of every dime in the markets, that it might give you, frankly, past decades have been a fantastic run for you. Some of you have heard the term bull market. A bull market is simply a time in the market when stock prices are rising or expected to rise. And the longest running bull market in history celebrated its 10th anniversary last March on the 9th. That's over a decade of a rising market. So for those of you who are into grabbing every dime in the market return you can get, it was a great run. But there are also others of you that are right now listening to this who've grown more risk adverse as you've aged. Or maybe you grew more risk averse because of what we've experienced over the last 3 weeks. You realize you're getting closer to living off that money you've accumulated, and you don't want much to do with risking that pile of money. So you're actually okay, 100% okay with taking a little less in return simply to help minimize your risk. So regardless of whether you'd consider yourself a member of the first group, the daredevils in the market, or the second group, those happier pulling back the reins a little, knowing for a fact that you have to live on that money, there are 3 things everybody here should be doing right now that's on this webinar. Number 1, the first thing, it's time like this that it's wise for everybody to have done is a simple risk exposure review. And when you first joined us as a client, this is one of the first things that we do is actually test and see what risk are you willing to take on and how much are you really taking in your portfolios. Regardless of where you'd consider yourself on this risk spectrum, whether you think you're Evel Knievel and you're more of a sit in the safe confines of your living room type, every one of you would be wise to know what is your number. It's unique to you. I say that because time and time again, we have folks in workshops or attending events that we do that when they come into our office or when we speak to them and we sit down and we actually go through this, they consider themselves relatively conservative when they've entered retirement. Let's just say hypothetically, we had a couple came in, sweet couple, just within the last month, they came in, they sat down, they said that exact thing. And when we actually went through and we tested it and we saw for them, we said, Randy, the husband, he considers himself the middle of the road. Randy's kind of that person that he says, I want to just be in the middle. We always kind of clarify. I said, Randy, help me understand what you mean by that. What would you consider your uncle point? He said, my what? I said, your uncle point. The point that when the market is losing, it's a certain percentage of your money that you've lost on paper that you'd say, I want out. And he said, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15%. His wife, Linda, she about knocked him out of the chair. And she said, maybe $10 or $15. She said, 10 or 15% my foot. She corrected him. I don't want to lose anything. Wives, it's funny how sometimes you two don't always line up. Typically we have one of the couple that's more conservative than the other. So I asked Randy and Linda if they'd have any objection to our team running their portfolio of retirement savings through a risk exposure review that we do for all of our clients. A risk exposure review is simply a review of your current assets to see how much risk they're exposed to, and what it does is show you how much your retirement money you currently stand to lose should the markets drop or correct. But what that really means to you is that before something happens on Wall Street, you have the ability to see its impact, to play that worst case scenario, if you will, and make adjustments now if you're not okay with that outcome. We've experienced that here over the last 3 weeks. You've seen what a lot would say is that worst case scenario. If you don't have an income plan to actually know where that's going to be pulling from, you don't know how much risk you're taking on, you might be very uncertain right now of how long your money's going to last. So if that's something you're concerned with, that's something we can help out with and see where you're going, what risk you're taking on. The next step is that, exactly like I said, that retirement income analysis, looking to see where your money's coming from each and every year. Now, retirement income analysis, it sounds like something super complicated, right? It sounds like NASA or Lockheed Martin, somebody went out and created. It's not. Retirement income analysis is nothing more than an analysis of the different sources of income you plan to use in retirement. This might include your 401k, maybe your IRA, your individual retirement account, maybe for a few of you, a pension. Maybe you have some other investments you plan to tap into, maybe even some personal savings. And what this retirement income analysis does is analyze these different envelopes of money, if you will, to determine exactly which you should tap into first, second, third, and exactly how long each one will last. It's how you should leverage each one to be most strategic with it, to ensure you have paychecks that you create for yourself that last as long as you live. Now, folks, can I tell you something? This is one of the biggest concerns that we see from people walking into our office every day, or that are calling in right now during this coronavirus epidemic, is that people have no idea where their income is supposed to come from, because they worked with somebody that told them it'll be okay. Just pull a little from your account as you go and it'll be all right. We firmly believe that you need to have a very detailed spin down plan to know where your money's coming from. The question of, will we actually have enough? And folks, did you know that you don't have to wonder about it? This is very easy. I'm amazed. It's very easy for us to be able to look at and show you. It always blows my mind, because some of you guys have been working with advisors for 10, 15, 20 years or more, yet at no fault of your own, you're still not sure, do you have enough? You don't have to wonder anymore. This is something we can give you a specific answer to. You can have that question mathematically and definitively answered for good. And that's what a retirement income analysis means. It means that when you leave our office, you're going to have a detailed written retirement income plan that lays out exactly how those sources are going to be tapped into, in exactly what order, in what amounts, and over what periods of time, that help you keep your retirement lifestyle from ever being disrupted. It doesn't matter if we have another market event, your money is going to last. Folks, if you have ever had this kind of detailed written retirement income plan put in place, that's fantastic. If you haven't, you're absolutely not alone. The reality is, roughly 80 to 85% of those who come into our office after events or webinars like we have with this, they've never had something like this done for them. So if we don't do anything else for you, if we don't even wind up working together, the only thing that we do for you is help to lay the groundwork so that you can have a written retirement income plan, then I think that that is well worth the time. So if that's something you're concerned about, then you can simply let us know at the end of this that that's what you want to see, is a written income analysis. Where's your retirement income coming from year by year? Now, the third piece is having an actual holistic financial plan. It's the final action that I look at is, I'm going to give you an example couple again. To protect their innocence, we're just going to call them Mike and Debbie. They came into one of our workshops last year. At the end of the evening, they said they wanted to meet with us. And 2 days later, they came into our office. We sat down in the conference room. After we'd gotten them a cup of coffee, Mike told us his biggest concern. He said, Andy, Hilgard, I'm a little worried we're behind. We didn't get the best jump on things, and I don't know if we're really on pace to retire like we've planned. And when I asked him to explain, he told me a little more about his situation. See, over the course of about 30 years, Mike had 3 or 4 different jobs. He worked in the printing industry, owned a small business for a little while, and he was about to retire after 19 years with a marketing company. 3 jobs there, 3 separate retirement accounts. Together, he and Debbie had some savings, some bonds, a few stocks. Kind of looked like this. Kind of looked like the proverbial junk drawer. I've got one of these. It's right as you walk in our front door to the left in the kitchen island. It's got a little bit of everything. Some of the most amazing odd stuff, right? Rare size extra battery for the garage door remote, those little tiny eyeglass screwdrivers, bottle of super glue, spare key. It's even got a VCR remote. I don't know. Does anybody even still have a VCR? It's in there. I'm pretty sure you could survive a desert island with what's just alone in their kitchen junk drawer, the little sauce packets from the Chinese food, everything. It's got amazing things in it. And yet it's the single most infuriating experience that you've got to get into. So the more Roger and Debbie talked, the more that's when their situation sounded like this to me. And I remember her saying, Andy, Hilgard, we've got a little bit of a lot. And every year we go in for our appointment. This guy tells us all the different stuff and how it's doing. And we look at a bunch of different graphs and charts and things, and we just nod. But then when we walk out together and just kind of shrug our shoulders, because neither one of us really knew what in the world we just looked at or what's going on. Can we just make it simple? And guys, we see clients like Roger and Debbie all the time. People who at some point in their 40s or 50s, they knew they needed to get started. So they grabbed the phone, they set an appointment, and just did that. I've got to tell you, I credit them for doing it. And I credit you, you've probably done the same. They got started. And someone helped them get some investments going or put an account in motion here or there. We see clients just like you all the time who have a portfolio. They just don't have a plan. Or if they do have a plan, it's way too complicated. And in retirement, complexity creates uncertainty. And that concerns us. Folks, I've been doing this for many years. Hilgard and the firm, over 24 years that we've been helping people just like you. And we've never understood how anybody could truly retire and relax without understanding and being confident about their financial picture. So I'll just ask you, how many of you have a true financial plan you understand in place at this point? And if you don't, again, you're not alone. As that describes easily many of those coming into our office who've worked with another advisor for many years. And it's not your fault. You've likely done a ton of things right along the way getting here. Just getting to this point, you've likely done a lot of things right. But here we sit with something like the coronavirus having folks alarmed and bringing us together. And it's all the more evidence that we should all have a more situation-proof plan in place. Here's what we believe. We believe that our clients should never have the best years of their lives completely derailed because of an outbreak of a virus in Wuhan, China, or a military conflict in North Korea, or election collusion investigations in Russia. I believe our clients deserve a sound and satisfying financial future, regardless of what the world around them does. And that's possible with a sound financial plan. So if this is something that you're concerned about, is having a holistic financial plan, be sure to let us know in the response that is at the end of this webinar. As we go forward, a lot of people, they've been confused. And when we started out the presentation, I had the picture of the man in the hazmat suit, asking if the coronavirus could infect your retirement. The truth of the matter is, it could. Indirectly, of course, but it could. For some of you, it may already have, but you don't have to continue wondering about that. We've all been to the doctor before. Some of us really concerned about a possible diagnosis. And for each one of you listening, I'm telling you, you don't have to wonder about that diagnosis. We all want to be told, you have nothing to worry about. You're going to be just fine. The first step to hearing those words is sitting down for a short visit with us, either in person at our office or virtually through Zoom, so that we can figure out where you are and where you want to go. From there, we likely have a number of options available to us. I was debating a couple years ago about trying to get started with working out again. I used to manage multi-million-dollar health clubs, worked out all the time, but I'd really just fallen out of doing that. And I decided, you know what, I've got all the knowledge, the ability I feel like to do this. I'm just going to go in, I'll join the gym. And when I did, they gave me the option I could go get started with a trainer. And I said, you know what, I feel like I can do this myself. I've got the knowledge. And I started working out furiously. I just started working out so hard that I wound up throwing out my back. I'd had back trouble before, but I couldn't even stand upright. It was just immobilized. So once I finally got recovered from that, I decided I'm not gonna have to learn that lesson a second time. I went and hired a trainer that specialized in recovery and rehab. And through working with them, I was able to not only just start working out again, I was able to start doing workouts that were specific to me to help with the weak points of my body. That way I wouldn't wind up in that spot again. I'm working on that still today. It's one of those things that I always go back to the knowledge of the experts that are helping me out. The first thing is to always take the first step. It's not too late. Even if you've lost money in this coronavirus outbreak, it's a time that we can put together a plan to help build your future. Now's the time to take that first step. So we'd love to invite you into our office once everything is lifted with this coronavirus ban from travel. You are able to still visit financial advisors during this time, but we want to make sure that we're here to help and support you. If you're not getting out right now because of social distancing, join us for an online event using Zoom. So there's a schedule link below. You can click and request a time that works for you. We'll make a time work within our schedule that we can help you out with your general questions. Let's spend some time to figure out what's concerning you now. Then we can plan together of what to do next. I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great day and stay safe.